we've been friends since middle school. Actually, we were friends in middle school, so. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate you having me. I hope that the story that I have to share helps inspire you. I'm really excited that Erie is behind this initiative and wants to build their own playground. I personally think that every town should have to have at least one, if not many, playgrounds with adaptable and accessible equipment. Like Kevin said, it personally touches my family, and I say all the time, you don't know until you know. We didn't know until we knew. So I'm going to share a little bit about our story. How many of you read my intro and saw our video a little bit? Okay. So I am Lauren Bowling. You can read this on your website, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our story. So I'm a mom of 3. I have, my oldest is 6. He just turned 7 on Monday. And my twins, Mack and Miles, are 5 years old. They are 18 months apart. Mack and Miles are identical twins. They were born, I get nervous and I start to say a lot, and I'm gonna try not to do that. So, Mack and Miles were born at 28 weeks gestation. So that is 3 full months early. We knew at 12 weeks gestation that they were sick. So we found out at 12 weeks that they were sick. At 15 weeks, they told us that they were never gonna make it into this world. Every single week after that, they told us week after week, we have no idea why they are still alive. There's no medical reason that they should be here. And I spent the rest of my pregnancy waiting for them to die. There's no better way to put that. I've spent the rest of my pregnancy waiting for them to die. At 20 weeks gestation, they were really worried that one of them was going to die and that I was going to have complications, so they moved me into Children's Hospital, Colorado. I am so grateful that we live in Colorado. I am so grateful that it is so close to us. It's only an hour away from our home. It is not states away from our home. We have specialists here for what we had. We had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. We had TAPS, we had SIGUR, we had all of the complications that you can have with identical twins. And we had something that they had never seen before called a double-barrel cord insertion. So they had a conjoined cord. There was no way to fix the problems that we had, which was why they were telling us that they were never gonna make it here. So at 20 weeks, I moved into Children's Hospital waiting for them to die. That was the point of me moving into Children's Hospital, was to wait for them to pass away. Again, week after week, there was heartbeats, and they were alive, and they were alive, and at 28 weeks, they said, they probably have a better shot at living out than in. And I said, go for it. They are still alive. And they took them, and they were both born not breathing. They were both resuscitated at birth. And Miles lost oxygen long enough that he had a traumatic brain injury called PVL, paraventricular leukomalacia, and that is what caused his cerebral palsy. We learned a few weeks into our NICU stay that had happened, that he had some white brain matter, and that was called PVL, and that many times that leads to CP, but they don't diagnose CP until about 2 years of age, and that you just have to watch their development and see what happens, which is a real fun diagnosis when you're 2 weeks into finding out that your babies are alive. So that's a little bit of our backstory. Fast forward through lots and lots and lots of wonderful days. They're here, they're alive. They're thriving, we are home, 101 days in the NICU, we get home, we're all a family. They're wonderful, they're perfect, they're amazing. We are doing lots of therapy. And we start to watch as Max rolls over and Miles doesn't, and Max sits up and Miles doesn't, and some things, and we start to figure out that there's some delay. And we start to figure things out, and we got a cerebral palsy diagnosis, which we were expecting. And we started to kind of figure out what cerebral palsy was going to mean for us. Cerebral palsy is a spectrum diagnosis. So it can mean walks a little bit different to quadriplegic. There's a whole bunch in between there, so it can mean many, many different things. For us, that means that Miles is not cognitively delayed, he is not verbally delayed, it is all physical. So his lower extremities and his right arm are all physically affected, but he is making strides every day. We do lots of amazing therapy. Again, we are so lucky to live in Colorado. We have amazing access to care. We have amazing therapists, and he works hard every single day. We were living in Meade, Colorado. We had moved to Meade before we had children, right after we got married in 2012, into a home that we had planned to have children in, and we had planned to live there for a long time. And we figured out that Miles was going to need help physically getting around. He was going to need a wheelchair. He might possibly walk with a walker one day, but that was going to be long term for us. And we were in a tri-level home. That wasn't going to work for us. So we started our search in 2020 to figure out what we were going to do. And we talked to 17 builders in Meade, Colorado, who all said, we don't really have to help you. ADA is not a requirement in the state of Colorado for home builders. They do not have to make ADA accommodations. They were selling houses like hotcakes in 2020, and they didn't need our headache. By the time we found a builder, it was in Berthoud, and they were willing to make some ADA changes for us, and we are so grateful to them, and we love our neighborhood, and we love our community. So that's how we ended up there. Once we were there, we had been there for about 6 months, and we are in phase 1 of a 7-phase master planned community. And I picked up the phone one day and called our developer, the developer of our neighborhood. I looked him up and found his phone number and called him. And I said, hey, we live here. This is, my family. And what do you have planned for ADA accessibility in the community spaces? And he said, we're ADA compliant. And I said, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means. The last ADA, the last legislature passed for ADA was in 1990. That was a long time ago. I welcome you to come to anything that is ADA compliant with my son and see how that looks. And he said, let's get together and talk. So we started talking. They were putting in a pocket park in between 2 houses, the little parks in between 2 houses on a plot of land. And they had already bought the equipment for that space. He said, we've already bought that equipment, we've already bought the land cover, but we could put in a swing, an ADA swing. And I said, that would be great. That would be a really great first step. And he said, great. And he hung up and he called me back 10 minutes later and he said, that swing costs $9,000. And I said, yep. Anything ADA is really expensive. And I said, let me fundraise to help you. And he said, okay, let's do that. So I think if you go to the next one, we came up with a plan for a lemonade stand. I did in my backyard with families showed up that said, we need more than a swing. We need more accessibility. My kid could use this. What can we do to help? How do we do more? What can we do? That's how this whole idea started. So the next day I went to my day job where I work, and I do philanthropy work there, and I happened to be doing some philanthropy work with Candide, who's a local nonprofit. And the first thing I did was I said, I need to talk to your CPA. I don't think I'm allowed to just raise $11,000. I don't know how to open a nonprofit. I don't know what I'm doing. And they said, okay, you can do that. And then they said, what are you doing? And we started talking and they said, we want in. We're all in, 100%. Let us help you. So I sat down with Candide, I sat down with my developer, we all started talking, and we started talking about the phase 2 playground, which is a full park, it's a full city park. And we started to develop the idea for a full $1 million playground, fully accessible, it's a real need. So we started working with their playground developer. We started really getting into it, and we came up with a design. And if you go through the next few slides kind of a little bit slowly, I crowdsourced through physical therapists, doctors, occupational therapists, parents. I reached out to my worldwide Facebook groups of parents of children with cerebral palsy, people with cerebral palsy, parents of children with special needs. We didn't just do people with cerebral palsy, people with physical needs. We talked to parents of children who are deaf, blind, children who have sensory needs, children with autism, children with any and every disability that we could find. We crowdsourced, we asked them, in your part of the world, what park is close to you? What do your children like to play on? What do they not like to play on? What is the one piece of equipment that you absolutely would have to have in a park? What's the one piece of equipment that your kid could care less about? We started to compile, we really started to pull it together. We talked to physical therapists who do therapy at playgrounds. That's a thing that motivates children to really continue on their therapy. We talked to doctors, we talked to everybody we could for months. And we came up with our design, and I really think it's a really good one. Not only for children and people with disabilities, but for everybody, for integrated, inclusive play. It's a place where children with needs, children without needs, parents, grandparents with physical needs can all access the entire place all together in one spot and play together. Inclusive play. Teaching people how to be inclusive now, today, at a young age. It's really, really important. It's something that this world is missing right now. So I can talk to you through all of the ideas and all the reasons that we went there, but obviously this is a passion of mine. We started fundraising. We had some pretty big donors at the beginning. Our developer gave us $100,000 and the land, and he is doing all of the legwork, right? He's doing the drainage and the sewer and the water and the electrical and all of that. It's all donated, which is pretty incredible. We also had somebody donate a car, not just a car, but a car that was auctioned off at Barrett-Jackson, and they sent us to Barrett-Jackson. If any of you are car people, this is the biggest car auction in the world, and it was auctioned for $100,000 and then immediately donated back and auctioned off again for $150,000. So that's where a large chunk of our fundraising has come. So that accounts for $350,000 of our fundraising, but all the rest has been community funded. Little chunks here, little chunks there. We have done another lemonade stand this year where we raised $14,000. That's what we've done so far.
Your second one at your place too?
Second one at my place too. Yep. We just decided to keep it homegrown.
Yeah, that's great though.
Yeah.
Great.
We now our plan and our desire is to have this playground built and have kids playing on it by next summer. And we will be able to do that. The developers, everything's approved for phase 2. The playground, the park will be developed next summer. The playground will be built if we have the funding. We have almost half of it so far. We're at 462, I think, when I looked today. We just got our sponsorship deck, so we were waiting on pricing for each of our pieces of equipment because we needed to be within a year of installs so that we could give pricing for shipping the actual equipment and install all wrapped into one pretty little price tag with a bow, so that we can give that out to corporations and people and say, hey, you can buy this entire swing for X amount and we'll make it so-and-so's swing, or this corporation slide, or this, you know, it can be yours, you know, it can be Lauren's bench.
What was the have-to piece of equipment?
Sorry, what?
For, according to your kids that you surveyed, what was the have piece of equipment?
Yeah, so if you go, for my son, that's my son Miles, right there on that swing, at a park here, a local park here. That park is in Aurora. So the closest playgrounds to us, just so you guys know, I'm sure you guys have done some of this research, Fort Collins and Greeley both have great parks. But those are 40 minutes from my place. Those are a 40-minute drive from my place. Those are the easiest drives. And then there are some as close as Thornton and Westminster. Aurora has several. This one is in Aurora. This is called Bluebird's Light. But Miles wants a wheelchair swing. He wants a swing. He wants equipment that he doesn't have to get out of his wheelchair, and he doesn't have to have somebody physically pick him up and move him. He wants to be able to move around the playground by himself independently in his wheelchair. So this equipment right here is really cool. This is a wheelchair swing. This is a merry-go-round that a wheelchair can roll right onto, and then it moves like teacups. The kids spin it themselves using something in the middle. It also has benches on it, so that children who are able-bodied can sit on a bench, and a wheelchair can also get in there, and they can all play inclusively together. And this one up in the corner, we're gonna be the first playground, if we can do it by the summer, the first playground on the west side of the United States, western side of the United States, to have this. It's called the Yelp-Sona Arch. What makes it cool is that it has a ton of games, music, numbers, shapes, colors. You can program it all the way up to about 6th grade, so it can do math and some more intricate games, and it can do little kid games. Historically, things like this used pressure plates in the ground to figure out where people were. If you can see the numbers and the shapes and everything, so it'll say move to this number, yeah, jump to this number, get to this shape. Historically, they've used pressure plates in the ground, and somebody in a wheelchair, it couldn't tell where they were going. This has a camera in the top that can see physical movement, and so that's what makes this inclusive play. It's also fully customizable and programmable through Wi-Fi, and you can program Christmas games, you can program Halloween games, you can program 4th of July games, which is really cool. Yeah. And if you go up 1 or 2,
Forward or back?
backwards. Yeah, right there. So our biggest piece of equipment is our big play structure right there with the farm. And so the entire play structure has ramps all the way up. And if you can tell, on the back side is a big hill. And so our big play structure is a 2-story play structure. And from the hill is a ramp to the 2nd story. So the entire play structure is accessible. Not just the bottom part.
So is it that component that costs $500,000?
That component is $350,000. The rollable surface is an additional, I think, $275,000.
Wow.
And then from there, it's mostly small potatoes for some of the other things.
So what do you do for ADA compliant bathrooms? Is
Yeah.
those, or are you gonna build a complete facility for that?
So that's a great question. We personally have some pluses and minuses. This land and this park are going to be HOA maintained, and it was donated by the land developer, which means it's not a public, it's a public park, it's not a town park. The negative to that is that the town has not given us any money and the government is not giving us any money. the plus to that is that we're moving a lot faster than the government and the town would let us, right? So as soon as we have the money, we can build. Because the phase of the neighborhood was already approved, and they said, we're gonna build this, we were gonna build a $200,000 park, we're giving you $1 million park, and the town said, approved, done. Next to it will be a pool for the neighborhood, and they were going to have a pool house. What the developer has decided is they will build the pool house with private bathrooms for the pool, one way, and then they're gonna build public-facing bathrooms towards the playground. And in that, one of my must-haves, number one must-haves, one of your number one must-haves is going to be adult-sized changing tables.
There you go.
We've seen those up at the Twin Silos, but I brought that up at our.
Adult-sized changing tables. I can give you a whole list of absolute must-haves, non-negotiables that we had.
So the whole project with the bathroom, you say, number of million, or is it more?
I would go 1.5. If the developer was not giving us all the other stuff.
Well, the city wants us to work with them on it, so we're on the ground floor, we've already made contact. And, they have a couple sites already selected for playgrounds. So they're still in the planning stages of which one they would possibly do something like this. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, yeah, and I think, we've had a couple of discussions about trying to, for the plans that are already laid, seeing if we can talk about how to make it a little bit more, compliant now and potential to have, down the road, the ability to do something more, but we can't change. It's very difficult to change their plans once it's underway. You can't change the budget. It's like, unless you come with your own money, you can't.
That's exactly where we were.
Yeah.
And the town of Berthoud and I talked, and they talked about adding a rollable surface to one of their playgrounds, and I said, that's not enough. And they said, well, that's really expensive, and I said, it's not enough.
At what point did you kind of make the decision, to pretty much put all your effort into a fully inclusive adaptable park rather than try to do pieces of other parks?
Pieces here and there.
When you decided that there was enough interest in the community? When you
No.
just got enough motivation to say, I'm gonna go for this myself?
Honestly, taking my son to a playground where there's a piece of adaptive equipment, I know that the intention is good, but it's heartbreaking. To take him somewhere where there's just a rollable surface and he can get all the way up to the equipment and then he can't play. It's more frustrating for him than taking him to a playground where he can't play at all. Taking him to a playground where there's a ramp up to one level and he can get all the way up to that level and then watch his brothers run up to the rest and go down the sides. It's more hurtful to him than it is helpful. And I know that the intention behind the people doing those things is good, but it's not good. It's not good. It's awful. I would rather take him to a park where his brothers can run to the playground and play, and I can push him on the sidewalk around, or his brothers can go play and there's a skate park where we can go up and down the ramps. It's better.
So most likely you can't be a little bit pregnant, you gotta go all the way. You can't put your foot in the water, you gotta go swim with the sharks. And I think that's important for us to know to go, when we talk to the city again, that, and again, we have the wherewithal possibly to get some additional money, like I told you about. And the city will be more than happy, I'm sure, to take in some money as well.
I mentioned this to you earlier, but I wanna do this more publicly, is I think whatever I wanna be involved with needs to be consumer driven. And that, yeah, your son would be the consumer, but not really. We need adult kinds of people. How can you put us in touch with people who have shed your tears?
Yeah, absolutely. People want their voices heard,
So,
100%.
well, that's my desire, you know, I'm just one here.
Absolutely.
There's probably people in the community you don't even know about.
Yeah, we actually met with, a lady, that Andy actually, introduced us to. We had coffee with her on Monday or Tuesday. Trying to think her name, it's Carol something, and I can't think of her last name right now. But, she's been involved in the Erie community with trying to get some public interest with things like this, and, she had a couple of recommendations to get involved with the group Building Better Neighbors. And she's also starting to work with the Girl Scouts. And she wants to work with us too. So, I mean, there are certainly people.
There are
that
plenty of people in
that are
your community
involved.
with children with needs, and when we started it, we had grandparents and parents who utilize wheelchairs or walkers who came to us and said, I want to take my kids or my grandchildren to the playground where I can get to them and I can play and I can access the equipment too. It's things that you never even think of. You never even thought of those things.
Yeah, we're definitely interested in moving forward. Right now for us, I think based on the discussion we had there, it is a matter of community interest. You have to make sure that people know what you're doing and why you're doing it and want to also support that.
So,
And I think that is where we're at. We're at the beginning of that.
yeah, and you'll get there. So as soon as our story, I mean, everything that we've done has been through social media. Everything. These sweet girls found out about our story, and started a lemonade stand of their own at their school and raised $900. And Libby continued on with her birthday. She sourced through her family and friends and raised an additional $1,000 for us. And this little boy in Berthoud won some money from his dad's work through a raffle and decided that he wanted to do a lemonade stand also, and raised another $130 for us. I mean, people are just, jumping in, and we call it people do-goodery. People just want to do good. People just want to get behind this.
A lot of fundraising, you have the warm fuzzy helping the kids, and that's aside from the parents, but the kids are what pulls at the heartstrings and the purse strings.
Yeah.
That I think we have an event, we have sometime next year, a gala event, and it'd be great to really hit everybody with your story, and others like you will make a big difference, and if we can make an impact with the stories, and that's what sells, it should be a good starting point for us.
Yeah.
Another idea that came up in our meeting, and I just haven't had a chance to really talk about this yet, but kind of focusing some of the theme around next year's gala around community pride, and having this be a piece of that. That would just be a part of the theme. I don't know if how that extends into what the whole thing would be, but I just wanted to share that. Community pride would be a good way to theme our gala next year, and park builds, and this particular was an adaptive park build, and it would be a nice piece of that as well.
One of the pieces that we do have that we're really excited about, the hardest part is the funding, right? We have to get the funding. But once we have the funding, and one of the things that we're most excited about is that the builder, the playground designer that we're working with, every single piece of equipment that we are gonna put into the ground, besides the ground, the rollable surface, can be community built. So we are gonna have community build days, we are gonna have community plant days, we are gonna have community mural days. We are going to have the entire community come out and build this playground from the ground up. We are gonna have them plant the grass and the flowers and the trees. We are going to have them paint the mural on the side of the bathroom. We're gonna have, this is going to be, everybody's gonna be able to come and see themselves in this thing. So this is my plug for myself. If any of you know any businesses or anybody, before you all kick your project off the ground, we need to fund ours. So this is our sponsorship deck. I can get it to any of you. We are working hard. We have many grants out right now. We are starting all of our grant work. Thank you for having me. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Do we have?
Who's the builder and the developer?
That is a great question. So one thing that did happen is our developer was Will Edwards out of Wyoming. He was amazing and wonderful and awesome and on it. And he just recently sold our development. And we have a new developer. He wrote our playground into the contract. He did not sell without making sure that the new developer would make this playground happen. And he involved me with his lawyers, and he involved our nonprofit with their lawyers, and we put verbiage in to make sure that they have to do it. The new developer is fully on board. We've had 2 meetings so far, and they are on board. They have not committed any money yet, but they are on board. They want to make sure that this happens. They're in it.
How big is the development as far as it's, so many acres?
It's huge. So we are off of County Road 1 and Highway 56 in Berthoud. And we are currently on the west side, and that's where the playground will be, right off of County Road 1. And the development will continue east of County Road 1, very far. Like, it's huge. It's gonna be huge.
But I'm asking for your playground.
Oh,
How big?
I don't know the answer to that. The playground itself, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that'd be something we'd have to, when we start talking to the city, figure out how much land we're gonna need to.
I'm sure that I can find out. The other thing that I do have that I can pass on to you guys is I talked to the town of Aurora when I started, and I got all of their plans and their entire budget and all of their drawings and all of everything for Red Hawk Tail Park, which is a good park. It's not the best park, but it's a good park. And theirs was 1.27 from the ground up.
Well, Lauren, I would say that our relationship is just beginning. Because we had a heart for this when we got together over a year ago and we did our strategic planning. And we said, what's the one thing we want to do to really make an impact in our community? And this was the project that we all got behind.
I love
And
that.
to find you and to build a relationship with you and to share and to support, we're going to be very close. I do have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a local Rotary in Berthoud?
So there is one. I went and talked to them very early on when this was just, I knew it was going to happen, but it was technically just an idea. It wasn't solid. I've been asking to go back, but they have not welcomed me back yet.
Well, one thing I'll make a commitment to do is to go talk at our district level and see if there's anything that we can do at a district level, whether it's grants or whether it's just support or getting even the communications out to
That would be
the
incredible.
whole district, which, you know, Berthoud is part of our community. So
That would be
I'm not
incredible.
sure if that's right.
You don't think
That's
it's
your
right for
workplace
me to
part of our
contact the district?
I don't think so.
Well,
He
we,
doesn't think Berthoud is part of our district.
oh, well, let me put it this way, our community, if they're a different district, then I'll go talk to their district, whoever.
Well, that's no problem, but I don't think they're part of our district.
Yeah, it
And
may,
as far as they go is me.
yeah, okay. That,
Well,
I'm-
thank you.
That's all right, I'll find the other people's phone number, but I will make that commitment to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Any help to get the word out, and anywhere I can go to share our story, I am happy to show up and ask and share.
And I have for you our Rotary Cup.
Thank you.
This talks about, certainly, we are, the things that we believe in are the things that we see that you model for us also. So thank you very much for coming.